One thing we all know that we need to do if we want to be healthier is exercising. However, what we also know is how difficult it actually is to get ourselves to exercise, which is why today we're going to go over 5 tips that will make it easier for us to exercise more regularly. So the first one would be to use implementation intentions. And basically implementation intentions are basically just saying what we're going to do when. And there are lots and lots of studies that have shown how effective these implementation intentions are. For example, in one of these studies, the participants wanted to make sure that they exercise as regularly as possible. And they split these participants into 3 different groups. One group just was a control group. In another group, they got all this information about all the health benefits of exercise, so this was the motivation group. And then in the third group, they wanted to make sure they had the same information so they would be just as motivated. And they also were told to fill in these implementation intentions, so in this case, when they're going to go to the gym. What was very interesting about this study was, firstly, motivation didn't actually really help at all. Both the control group and the motivation group, only 38% of those participants actually continued going to the gym after the study. Whereas in the third group, with the implementation intentions, in that group, 91% of the participants actually continued to exercise regularly. And then the second tip would be that we want to make sure that we decrease the friction between our intention and our action if we want ourselves in general to engage in good habits. So for example, when it comes to exercising, you could prepare your sports bag beforehand so that when you feel tempted to stay at home, because it's nice and warm at home and you really don't feel like going to the gym, it's easier for you to go because you've already prepared beforehand. In one podcast, James Clear explained how he finds it very interesting that most people that we call extremely disciplined are actually not necessarily any more disciplined than us when it comes to their personality. They just put themselves in environments that tempt them less. And Ed Milet, in a podcast with James Clear, said how he thinks that it's not necessarily the case that disciplined people are more disciplined, but that people who are extremely hardworking are more disciplined. But that he thinks it's the case that these hardworking people know how undisciplined they can be, and because they know how undisciplined they can be, they put themselves in situations that tempt them less, and therefore they are more disciplined in general. And therefore they become more disciplined because they tempt themselves less. Now, another way to reduce this friction between your intention and your action of going to the gym, and this would be the third tip, would be the 2-minute rule by James Clear. So basically what the 2-minute rule says is that we should take any good habit we want to build and just concentrate on doing that for 2 minutes and start small so that we don't feel too overwhelmed. Now, of course, going to the gym for 2 minutes seems kind of stupid because it takes you longer to get to the gym than the time that you actually spend at the gym. But I think just the principle, the reason why this 2-minute rule works is very effective for exercising. And the reason I think that this principle is so powerful is because let's say you tell yourself that you would want to exercise 2 or 4 hours a day. That would lead you to feeling extremely overwhelmed and therefore procrastinating because you want to avoid this discomfort. Or it could also be the case that you actually do manage to get yourself to go to the gym even though you feel so overwhelmed, but you only manage, let's say, an hour at the gym. And then even though you've actually done something, you're kind of punishing yourself for not living up to your expectations because they were so high. And then because you feel like you've done nothing even though you've actually done something, because you feel less good about yourself because of what you're comparing yourself to, you're less likely to go in future because you didn't get the reward of feeling good about yourself for going. Just tell yourself that you're just going to do it for, let's say, 20 minutes or half an hour, and then you will probably, once you're in the gym and you see that it's more doable than you thought it would be, now you can see whether you're going to stay longer. And in many cases it's just that this first step is so difficult and then you manage to go on for a long time. And then the fourth tip would be to use the 2-day rule, which basically means that you're allowed to miss 1 day of not going to the gym when you intend to go to the gym, but you're not allowed to miss 2 days in a row. This is great against our all or nothing mentality, because what tends to happen when we don't go to the gym once is that we feel like a complete failure, because we've got this all or nothing mentality and think that if we've just missed 1 day, that already shows that we're not capable of actually achieving our goals because we didn't go all in. Whereas the 2-day rule kind of forces you to go against that tendency of having this all or nothing mentality, and going the day after kind of breaks this all or nothing mentality, because with many people what happens is they miss 1 day, and because they've missed 1 day and they feel bad about that, they just never go again. They kind of spiral more and more into this rut. And the same goes for diets. With many people that tell themselves that for some time they're not going to have any sweets, they have one little biscuit or so and then eat the whole other package simply because they feel like they've already broken their diet anyway, so they might as well have the whole packet. And another reason why I think the 2-day rule is so effective is that you want to make sure that missing the gym or not exercising for a day doesn't necessarily have to be going to the gym. You want to make sure that that becomes an exception and that you don't get into the habit of not exercising anymore. Now, the fifth tip would be to have an accountability partner. So basically to make an appointment with, let's say, a friend of yours who also wants to go to the gym, and because you know that he's going to show up there and you better show up there too, otherwise he'll be disappointed. Of course, then you're more likely to go to the gym. Whereas if you haven't got an appointment and you could just go to the gym any day without any immediate consequence of a friend, for example, being disappointed, you could just procrastinate and just tell yourself that you'll do it another day. The funny thing is, we always think about peer pressure as in teenagers who get themselves to take drugs, drink too much, and party all the time. However, peer pressure, for example in this case accountability partners, can actually also be used for improving your behaviour, for sticking to your goals. The thing is, once we've built this habit of exercising, it's very easy to, after a while of having built this habit, fall off track again. So if you want to know how to avoid falling off track, you can watch this video here.